Welcome, everyone, to the Mike Tech Show. This is show 869. I'm recording this on a Saturday afternoon. Today's show, I am going to talk about a new client and some of the things that's involved in communication when you're trying to figure out what is the real problem. And then I have a voicemail from a listener and someone I have met a couple times down here in Florida. The Philadelphia Inquirer, one of the biggest newspapers in the country, was compromised by a cyber attack. And then we're going to talk about OpenVPN MFA, multi-factor authentication, and Evernote replacement. So the Evernote replacement is the voicemail. So let's get started. New client from Scott, who I'm also going to play a voicemail from in a minute. He brought up he referred me to a few clients actually down here, which is in Florida, which is just incredible. And thank you, Scott. One of them I was talking to had an email problem. Now, he'll refer someone that mentions they have a server issue or an email problem. He concentrates on residential, so he'll refer me to those clients. And since she mentioned an email problem and a server problem, we were on the phone for a few minutes, and she kept describing the entire story to how she got there. And I think I came off a little rude. I tried not to. I was like, no, I want to get to what the problem is. And she says, well, let me get there. She couldn't describe the problem because she didn't know how. And this was the bottom line. And it took me a while to extract what the real problem was. She got a new computer. The person set up email on the computer, and it's a Windows computer, and she was coming from a Mac, and autocomplete in Outlook wasn't there. So the problem was transferring the autocomplete. Now, since it was not a Windows system, I don't know how to pull it off a Mac. And so I ended up getting her a local place to go to for the Mac. But here's another problem. That old Mac will not boot. So right off the bat, we have a hardware problem that I cannot fix. I can't repair Apple hardware. I can upgrade RAM sometimes, and I even try to stay away from not staying away from Macs and Apple, but I'm not trained on the hardware. So I can do software. I can, clean it up. I can put anti-malware on it. I have lots of things I can do, but not hardware. So one of the things I had to make sure I had to communicate was, look, you got to get that autocomplete, and that's the term. And I asked, does she have the contacts? And not sure if she has all of her contacts or not. I said, you need your contacts moved and then autocomplete transferred, and someone that knows how to do that. And she did have an older Windows computer that doesn't work. And I told her, if you get that to boot, I will get the autocomplete because I can use the Nearsoft NK2 program and easily do that. So it was interesting how long it took before I got to the problem and this happens a lot with new clients that have an issue. Instead of describing the issue, they describe the solution. And it's hard to get them to focus on, give me the problem. Describe what's not working. Don't describe everything. I'll ask, hey, what have you tried after that? So I would love stories like that lead into more complicated solutions and more complicated problems. Let me know if you have some of those issues. And of course, you can email me anytime at miketechshow@gmail.com. I would love to hear it, love to share it, and even better, hey, record the voicemail like I'm going to play right now.
Just over in Safety Harbor. I heard you talking about Evernote. Hey Mike, Scott Johnson here, your Florida neighbor just over in Safety Harbor. I heard you talking about Evernote and the upgrades and their price increase. And I've used Evernote for a long time to keep track of my podcast guests and episodes and a bunch of other things. I have so many notes I didn't really want to think about migrating to a new system. But on Evernote, I kept getting this pop-up every day saying, hey, this version of Evernote you're using is way out of date. Please click to update to the new version. But I had heard from so many people that the newer versions eliminated some of the features and in some cases made Evernote no longer hardly usable. So I checked around for alternatives, and the one I kept hearing about was Notion. I'm sure you've probably heard of it. So I created an account on Notion to give it a try, and it seemed like it works pretty similarly to Evernote. Then I tried migrating all of my notes from Evernote into Notion, and it worked seamlessly. I've been using it for a few days now, and so far I'm still in the free version of Notion, and it's working fine. I'll probably upgrade to the paid version just because I like to support companies like this, and I want them to stay in business. So just thought I'd drop that as an FYI to anyone who's thinking about switching away from Evernote.
Scott, thank you. I've mentioned Notion, but I never had an example of anybody trying to use it, and I'm definitely going to take a look at that because, as everybody knows, I've always been scared of what's going on with Evernote ever since they sold the company, and lots of their upgrades are horrible, horrible problems. So link in the show notes for Notion. Scott, thank you so much. He's also given me another client, a business client, that I may have to do an email migration because they have a service for their web services that also provides email. But wait until you hear this. Their email is outsourced to another smaller company. So I'm like, okay, because we have to reset the password. So we got to get to where we need to go. Well, that company outsources to another company for the email. It's getting ridiculous. And one of the major problems, they can't send email to Gmail clients. It often gets rejected or bounced. I looked at that bounce message. That is exactly what I've seen when the SPF record is not correct. I said, we got to get to where your DNS is. And I see where it's hosted, the DNS. And again, that's a third-party company from not the web vendor that they're dealing with. And we get through to tech support, and they make the DNS entry. So now, if we're going to migrate the mail to an Exchange hosted, which I recommend it because they only have one email account that's shared. And so now we got a different problem with trying to get control of the DNS. I want to get this all cleaned up. But then we got another problem. They're using Office 2007. I'm like, you need to upgrade. They don't want to spend money on these things. So now I'm waiting to hear back. I gave all my recommendations. I fixed the Gmail issue by getting that SPF record done. They're getting a tremendous amount of spam, and there's no control over that. As a matter of fact, talking to the tech, he actually disparaged the email that they have, and he says, "Yeah, you have no control over. There's no settings or anything you can do with spam." And I'm like, "Look, we need to get a professional Exchange hosted solution for your email. It's just one account. Let's go." And actually, I think it's less money than they're spending. So I'm waiting for a call back. This was last week, was the first meeting, and we've emailed a couple times. So I expect some additional work. I'll follow up with everybody on this, but Just interesting, how this goes. And what we unravel and the rabbit hole we end up going down as we dig, through issues for a client. But I can get this all squared away. Transfer the domain name to GoDaddy and then point the website with the A record. Get control of their DNS. Get them hosted direct with Microsoft or SureWeb. Or for that matter, I don't use AppRiver, but AppRiver. Any good hosted exchange provider. Now, real quick, I'm going to have a link to Uncle Marv's IT Business Podcast. If you go there, his last show was me as a guest on Wednesday night. And the topic was from Philly to Florida. Mike Smith shares his journey, including a look back to his start in 2008 as an IT consultant and business owner. And it's only an hour, and love being with Marv on a podcast. Give it a listen. You got the time, check it out. Link will be in the show notes, and it's the IT Business Podcast show 492. I want to play this short clip from ABC Action News in Philadelphia. Last week, there was a primary election for the mayoral race. And the biggest paper in the state, the Phila Inquirer, was compromised with an attack, a cyber attack. Give a listen here.
The FBI is now involved in the investigation into a cyber attack targeting the Philadelphia Inquirer. Printing operations were affected over the weekend, and experts say the timing of this attack is concerning. Action News reporter Maggie Kent is live now in Center City with more. Maggie.
Well, Sarah, of course, the primary being tomorrow, and unfortunately, the offices here of the Inquirer are empty and will be again tomorrow during that election. That, of course, raising concerns that hackers might be trying to target the free press. We spoke to a cybersecurity expert about what happens now. With 140,000 subscribers, the Philadelphia Inquirer is a staple for regional news coverage. A cyber attack late last week disrupted its ability to print Sunday's edition of the newspaper. With the mayoral primary vote tomorrow, its staffers won't be able to return to their offices.
A free press is a bedrock to our democratic institutions. So the fact that this comes at the time that's right before a primary certainly raises suspicions that that could be the reason this was done.
Cybersecurity expert Jack Thomas Tamarchio says cyber attacks targeting publications typically come in the form of ransomware.
They make it difficult for you to go to print unless you pay a ransom. This was also done in the UK in December of 2022.
On Sunday, the Inquirer was able to print the early edition of the paper, Friday's draft, and post articles online. According to an article published on its website, the system has not been fully restored.
If you talk to the FBI, they will say never, never, never give money to unlock your systems. But it's a business decision.
Tamarchio warns of scams that could provide hackers access to sensitive systems. One is spear phishing, which leads victims to click on a link coming from what looks like a safe sender.
I've seen really sophisticated spear phishing operations, and you would think that it was literally coming from your grandmother.
The FBI says it is aware of this hack and assisting as needed. The Inquirer says it will continue to deliver the news both in print and online. They've also hired a third-party cybersecurity forensic investigator to look into exactly how this happened. We're live in Center City. Maggie Kent, Channel 6, Action News. Brian, Sarah.
Okay, Maggie, thank you.
All right. So they didn't admit that it's ransomware, but we're guessing that it is. Now, I learned a term there.
Big
I don't
story
know.
On Action News tonight is the horrific overnight crash that just.
Had to pause that. Sorry. What I learned is the term spear phishing. I thought that was very interesting. I mean, normally I only hear the term phishing, but that was interesting. Spear phishing. So anyway, there's been no update as to what caused it. I don't think we're ever going to learn. That was like the hack here in Oldsmar, the town that I'm in, where a couple years ago there was a breach of the water system and it was almost contaminated because I can't believe they had remote access and someone compromised TeamViewer. The water system should not be accessible from the outside world. Anyway, that's a lesson that was learned down here. The attacks, very interesting. I would love to know how it penetrated, how it got in, what's going on. Was it human error, someone clicking on something? Was it someone putting a rogue USB stick into a system on the network? But interesting of a newspaper attack, and coincidentally, right before the primary election in Philadelphia. So if I find out more, I will follow up. So now a couple things I've been working on with clients and some problems. So a quickie, and I'm going to have a link here. A client was frustrated on the size of Gmail text when he was sending email, and just increasing the size of the fonts and everything on Chrome had no impact on Gmail, and he's using Chrome. You have to change the default style. So I have a link here for formatting fonts and colors with Gmail, and you got to get to the settings and get down to default text style. And you only have small, normal, large, and huge. So we tried huge to make it a little better, but when he sent an email, it looked like he was yelling at the recipient because it was really, really hard that it was really hard to be able to read it because it was so big. It was like almost offensive that it was big. So we went to large, and that made it a little better. So it was acceptable. And I thought it was interesting that, I'd love to, it'd be great to be able to raise the font size for you as the person composing, but automatically have it set at a size that it's going to go out to the recipient. Because this happens a lot as we get older, our eyes are failing, and some of the clients that are older, they got to make the fonts bigger. But sometimes if you make it too big, and especially when we're dealing with email, now it's going out that big. And you don't want it. You want it to go out at an 11-point or 12-point size. But maybe, we need it 20-point to be able to read it. So anyway, let's see. What do you think? Is there a better way to handle this? That would be great. I want to take a moment and give me a second here. This show is brought to you by MagnusBox, the best online backup solution for all your customers. They support Office 365, SharePoint backup, all operating systems across all the platforms, whether it be Linux, Mac, Windows, whether it's Windows Server. This is the solution that you need to put in place to become a hero with your clients, because it just works. And when they delete a file or a folder and you're able to quickly retrieve it from a single pane, a panel in the admin, you're going to be a hero, and they're going to want you forever. This is the business backup solution that you need. You can easily become a partner, and you can kick the tires and test it out. Go to magnusbox.com. sign up for the trial. And then when you come back and you want to become a partner, make sure you tell them you heard it on the Mike Tech Show. You're going to get $100 off your first invoice. You're going to get free white labeling and half price for your first 3 months on the platform fee. Go try it now, magnusbox.com. All right, let's keep going. So now I'm going to talk about multi-factor authentication with the product Arista, which is Untangle. They were bought and rebranded. It's now, well, Arista, not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's no longer referred to as Untangle. One of the things I painfully had to go through with some older hardware, and we actually had to swap it out with newer hardware because we were unable to get it to successfully go to the latest version, which is 16.6 for the NG firewall. But starting with 16.3, OpenVPN now supports multi-factor authentication. And this is just awesome. I set this up literally in a few minutes this week by just turning on all of the options under the OpenVPN server. You create an account, and then you can either marry it to a Radius solution or some other solution, or there's actually a local directory option within the firewall where you can create the account. Then you can go into the settings and actually get the QR code, which can be used with any authentication. I recommend Authy. I use that, AUTHY. I use that on my iPhone all the time for multi-factor authentication on anything that doesn't have a specific app. Where Microsoft, you have, the Microsoft Authenticator. Anything that just requires something else, and it can be, bring your own to the party. I use Authy. It just flat out works. You just have that QR code, and when Authy prompts you, when you're adding the authentication, you put that in. And now when you connect to OpenVPN and you're prompted after you've entered the right credentials, that's it. You just put the code in, you're connected, and now you can do the following. If you have the direct links to the file server, you can just // in File Explorer. And I go by the IP address because I can't count on DNS working across the systems. Now, luckily, there's an IP scheme that is very, very different than your typical local IP scheme. They have 192.168 and a strange number that will not match the local number, possibly, because that's where you can get into trouble with VPNs. And if you're connecting to a lot of different ones, like I am, I got to make sure my IP scheme is not going to overlap with a client's IP scheme in their office, so I can map. Now, what good is the OpenVPN MFA? Well, first off, multi-factor authentication is going to make it significantly secure. Now we can use RDP over OpenVPN MFA to connect for remote access to systems. I've done that to the servers, and I just love it. An example, when I connect to one of their servers, and this happens to me when I do the same thing for accessing my Pennsylvania system when I'm here in Florida, I'll bring up the RDP, which you never use on the open internet unless it's wrapped around a VPN for security, I can set it to take advantage of my multi-monitors. And one of the things I love is I have 2 monitors in Pennsylvania, but when I connect, it takes advantage of all 3 of my monitors here. I can also have my resources automatically mapped, where my local drives are mapped, so I can transfer files and copy files easily for the systems. So I have multiple ways of connecting to a system. I still use Instant House Call. I have Instant House Call on all of our systems that we can put it on for unattended remote access. I also have Synchro remote access, which is Splashtop. The problem is between those two, they don't always work with every system, and that's a challenge sometimes. So that's why we put both on. Now, most of them, I can do both, but we got systems that we cannot put Synchro on, and we have systems that they cannot put Instant House Call on. Then now I have RDP to be able to get in, and we can do that, and that, of course, is free. So one of the things that I always look for is a good way to remotely connect, and then what does the client need? And one of the things that has emerged for this client is, instead of using Instant House Call sub-accounts, which they were using to get in for some of the higher engineering work and some of the complex remote access that they need, we're trying RDP for that. One of the things that they had rolled out internally for a few users was a free called No Machine. Boy, that gets complicated and tough to manage and tough to get it work. So that's why I still go to, Instant House Call is my default for most of the remote access, and then adapt to the client as needed for what they need for everything. So I will have a link for setting up multi-factor authentication for OpenVPN under the Arista firewall. That is it for today's show. And hopefully this week I'll be back on my normal Thursday night. I was tied up with unexpected extra work that had to be done on Thursday night. I might talk about that next week as to what happened. I'm still waiting for some things to resolve, and then I'll talk about that. Yeah, I knew at an early time on Thursday that it just wasn't happening. There was no way I was going to be able to do a show Thursday night. So that's when I quickly went in and said, okay, I'm going to put an announcement out that doing this on Saturday afternoon. So I hope you enjoyed the show. Please stay subscribed. Don't forget, check out the YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/Michael Smith MTS. And check it out, the videos, and click subscribe. Email me for any questions or follow-up to anything you heard today at miketechshow@gmail.com. That's it, everybody. Have a great weekend, and talk to you next week. Bye-bye. All right. Yeah, that's cool. Hold on. Let me save project as. Yeah, I got a little more editing than I wanted to have today. 869, MTS 869, save. All right. And now I gotta I want to start uploading the recording to get it processed on YouTube. Give me a second here. Come on. What do I want? Podcast video. MTS 869 dash video. I stopped recording. Why can't I rename it? Hey, everybody, this action can't be completed. I don't understand. I'm trying to rename. I do this all the time. There's something going on with my computer. Close the file and try again. It is closed. Okay, everybody, I am restarting OBS. Hold on. Well, you know what?